Today we are fixing the plastic on the hoop house. There was a big tear right here. This is hoop house number 1. There's a big tear in the plastic all the way down. So what we've done is we've come and we've put some poly tape on that. So there was a big tear right here, and it needed to get fixed because the wind was blowing inside. You can see the plastic is fairly damaged here. The other problem is that this rope, there are 2 ropes that hold down hold the hoop house down to the anchors, and the rope had broken, and it was just kind of partially tied to the bottom. So the other day the wind was coming through and starting to lift off the hoop house here. So we are going through and we are restringing the rope, 850 pound strength rope, and coming through and restringing this whole thing today, just one side, because the other rope is just fine. So here we are, we've got our hoop house, and we're going through and starting at this corner here. We have the rope going through. We've got a big spool of rope over there, so you got the rope coming through the carabiners. We throw it over one side, attach. There you go, there's the rope coming over, and then we just zigzag back and forth. We'll get to the very end down there and we will attach it.
That's the low one here.
What do you think that's right?
And then this high one.
The main line's going straight down, I think. Okay, we finished putting the rope in a crisscross fashion along the entire length of the hoop house. So the rope gets tied down here. We started down here, we ran it through and up and over and zigzag back across, back and forth. So that's it. We are done restringing this side of the hoop house. The other rope was just fine, so we're going to leave that in place. So this hoop house is secured. It was pretty windy the other day, and air was sneaking in to where this was torn here, and the hoop house was not looking all that stable. So it's nice to have this all done now. Over the last few days, we started laying out the raised beds inside of the hoop house, the second hoop house, the one we're going to grow in this year. It's a 14-foot hoop house from side to side, so I was hoping to be able to get 4 30-inch beds in here, but honestly, 4 30-inch beds is a little tight. It makes about a 10-inch pathway, and that's just super difficult when we're growing tomatoes in here and we need to stand up on a small ladder or something. There's just not enough space in the pathways. So what we've been doing is we're going to run 3 beds. There's one on the side at just 10 inches from the side, one straight down the middle here, right underneath the overhanging bars here, the support bars, and we're going to trellis from there. And then we've got another one over here. Each of the beds is 30 inches and about 40 feet long. This hoop house is technically 50 feet long, more like 48, but we need a little space here at the entrance to just be able to maneuver, and a little bit of space on the back as well. So we laid out the beds here. You can see that we've got just stakes in the corners, and we've run baling twine all around just so we can visualize what's going on. There was a lot of straw in here. We've moved that out of the beds and moved it into the pathways, and then we started laying down cardboard, which is going to serve as a sort of barrier, a sort of landscaping fabric. And then what we're doing is laying compost on top, and we'll do about 5 inches of compost. We have about 3 cubic yards of compost out here, maybe about 4 from the previous owners and the previous year. And then on Monday I have another 10 cubic yards being delivered. So we'll go through and we will lay the compost and do about a 5 or 6 inch raised bed with straw in the pathways. Lay the drip lines back down. Got to get all the drip lines sort of maintained and tidied up. I don't know if they're any good, so we may have to rerun drip lines. And then starting in a few weeks, we'll start getting irrigation out here, and we will grow exclusively vegetables in this hoop house this year. You can see I have a hat on today. It's a really sunny day and it's really warm in this hoop house. When we got in here, it was really toasty. So on the edge of the hoop house, on the bars, you'll see these little springy things here. These things are called skirt hangers. And what you do is you turn them around, lift up the plastic, and set them on top of the hangers, and then that will aerate. You do that all along. You can see here in the middle, we have the skirt hangers higher. So what happens is you lift the skirt, the edge of the plastic up about a foot here, and then as you go to the middle, it gets higher, and that aerates the entire hoop house. You could also open the back of it. These zip up and roll up, and there's some straps that you can attach that stays rolled up, and that aerates the entire hoop house. So this week we'll finish getting these beds all set up, and we'll be good to go. Probably put a little bit of organic fertilizer on top of them so that they have some nutrients. The ground here, as I learned the other day, we had a backhoe out here and it was digging for the new septic field, and you can see that the soil is pretty much a sandy loam. It's got a lot of sand in it, but it's a very nice texture. It's just very sandy. There's not a lot of nutrients in the soil here. It's not dead soil, but there's just not a lot of plant available nutrients. So when we get these raised beds laid in here, we'll come through with a nice layer of organic fertilizer that'll break down over time and feed the plants. I was working in the hoop house getting the beds staked out, getting ready for the growing season. Oh, and this little guy here, can't find him, there he is. This little guy was in here, little frog. I think these are the frogs that were living in the flowers that were growing here before. So it's pretty cold actually right now, but these frogs are still in here, so it's nice to see this guy. The other day we had 15 cubic yards of compost delivered. The old compost pile was over here, and that had been there for, I don't know, maybe a year or two. And so we had another 10 cubic yards delivered, but in fact, when the guy showed up, he said, well, I figured I'd give you 15 cubic yards, and I didn't say no to that. So we got 15 cubic yards delivered. With that said, we started digging into this compost pile, the new one, and as I suspected, it wasn't quite finished, so it was still cooking, and the compost was smoking, so we're not going to use that compost right now. We're going to hang on to it for a while, let it cook down a little bit further, and then we can use it. I don't know if you can see it here, but we have a little invasion of robins in the backfield. These robins have been running around, stealing worms. There must be 30 of them out here. They're all over the place. But they're cute, and they have a nice little sound, so we like them. Been working inside of the hoop house on finishing the raised beds. Like I said, there's 3 raised beds here, 1, 2, and 3. And the compost that we were digging into outside, the old compost, went onto this bed right here. We've got that piled about 5 or 6 inches deep. And then we started on this bed here. That one's not quite done yet. And then this one is far from being done. This is where we started digging into the new compost, and as I said, it was smoking, so we said, okay, stop there. This bed will have to wait a little while. But we've got this bed pretty nicely laid out and full of compost. So you can see that it's looking actually pretty good here. Well, for a hoop house bed, it's looking pretty good. So we started putting some water on this thing because underneath we've got cardboard, and then we've got about 5 or 6 inches of compost on top. That compost is pretty hydrophobic. So as we started putting some water on there, it just really doesn't soak in. So what we've done is we've gone through and just kind of sprayed water on the top, kind of all over, and the water's sitting there and it's soaking in. We'll let that soak in overnight. Come back through probably tomorrow and water it down a little bit more. And that will be the first bed that we plant in. The side beds are going to be for lettuce, eggplant, peppers, things of that nature. And then the middle bed will be for vining things like tomatoes and cucumbers, where we will trellis. So we're going to run up here. We're going to run a trellis. If I can do it, we're going to run a pipe up here. I can't show you on the video. I'm not very good at it. We're going to run a pipe up there, and that will serve as our trellis, and then we'll hang lines down, as I said in a previous video. So, getting close. That's all we're going to do for right now in this hoop house. It's looking really, really good. So much better than when I first got here, and there was just a whole bunch of dead plants and hay in here. So, next step is to get the seedling station up and running and start planting some seedlings. And, well, hopefully in a month or month and a half, we'll have some seedlings in this bed here and we'll be growing things.